And welcome back to another week of the 5-Star Podcast of Wrestling. I'm your host, Sean Meyers, joined by my co-host, Justin Lowery. And Justin, I know this is an exciting episode for you for trending topics here this week. We are delving away from my comfort zone of WWE / the WWE umbrella of companies. And we are talking what is really the biggest story in independent wrestling, not only in 2018, probably in recent memory, quite frankly, with the, independently funded pay-per-view special called All In that takes place this Saturday in Chicago. You're the expert on this one, so I'm going to let you do the heavy lifting. But first off, I want to get your take on how this came to be and the significance of what this show really means for the professional wrestling landscape, because it's certainly something that is really unprecedented in many ways.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm pretty much going to focus on, then giving a detailed, listing of match by match and my thoughts, because, who the hell knows here. But this is going to be a very important night in wrestling. Whether it's bad or good, it's very important. Everybody, I think, in the wrestling community is going to be paying attention. Even if you're not watching it, you're going to pay attention to what happens. I think it was about a year ago when Meltzer kind of threw out there that he didn't believe the Young Bucks or, Cody Rhodes could sell out a 10,000-seat arena. And word got back to them. They said, you know what, we accept that challenge. And they did. Not only did they sell it out, they sold it out in minutes. And at the time, it was not going to be on pay-per-view or anything. But so many people wanted to watch it, including myself. I'm like, we live in Pittsburgh. That's in Chicago. There's no way I'm, getting to go there to see the show. And the fact that they've been able to work it out where they're going to show it on pay-per-view and different streaming sites, I think is a credit to Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks and everyone involved for making this happen. I think it also shows that there's a strong passion for wrestling still around. And even though maybe the WWE ratings are lower than it used to be, there are people that are clamoring for something different. WWE's pretty much has been the same now for, 15 years? I think it's just going through the motions. 2001 ended, and maybe 2002, 2003, some new things were happening. But around 2005, 2006, I think it's just been spinning in circles, the same old.
And most people attribute that to no direct weekly competition.
Right.
I mean, at least not, there's competition, but no one that really is anywhere close to the same caliber as their former opponents.
Right, and I don't expect there to be that type of competition, especially in the near future, because no one has that type of money. TNA learned the hard way in 2010 when they tried going up on Monday nights. They had something going, but they brought in the wrong people, and they went up against them when they weren't even close to being ready, and look what happened. New Japan is slowly building a U.S. fan base. Ring of Honor and their partnership is helping grow that. It's also helping grow Ring of Honor.
Well, one thing we should note, and you gave a pretty good background to this, but you had mentioned initially Meltzer talking about Ring of Honor selling out 10,000. Ring of Honor has a good following, but this is, while it has a distinct Ring of Honor flavor, this All In technically is not a Ring of Honor production. It is independent of that. Although if you watch Ring of Honor, which is the only show outside of WWE that I watch, you're going to recognize more than half of the names on this card, and you're going to know them pretty well from seeing them each and every week. But it is, despite a Ring of Honor flavor, not officially affiliated.
Right, but even if you watch Ring of Honor, their partnership with New Japan, you're still going to recognize New Japan names.
Right. A lot of those guys work America, Ring of Honor, go over to Japan and work for New Japan, and they sort of, I don't want to say go back and forth, but they do both.
Those combined U.S. shows, that usually they're on the West Coast. I think this is great. I don't care who wins or loses. It's a one-off show. I don't think, it's not going to mean match much of the outcomes of the matches. It's about what it's going to deliver. It has to be good. There's a lot of pressure on these guys to deliver a great show, because they know if they don't deliver a great show, it's probably never going to happen again. For it to happen again, it needs to be successful. People need to, buy this pay-per-view. I implore you, if you are a wrestling fan and you know nothing about this show, but you're a hardcore wrestling fan, at least give it a shot, check it out. We talked right before we went on that we believe it's about $40, which for our pay-per-view wrestling shows on the cheaper end. I mean, everybody has a WWE network nowadays. But
right, and truthfully, I'm the type of person, I've been getting WWE pay-per-views since 1992, but I wouldn't pay for these secondary pay-per-views, whether it be $40, $30. I always get the big ones.
Right.
But especially now, I don't think I would be getting more than maybe 4 WWE pay-per-views a year, because if you're paying individually for them, that really, really adds up. But to your point, $40 one time isn't that big of a deal.
Right. Especially if you get a bunch of your boys over together, you all pitch in. It's not going to cost you that much money, to get it. And for me, I need to watch it for the historic value. WWE always likes, say everything they do is historic. This to me is historic. This is the first time an independent wrestling show has been able to sell out a 10,000 seat arena. I mean, this is big time, and WWE's taken notice. I mean, over the last year and a half, they won't acknowledge it, but they see New Japan and Ring of Honor and what they're doing, and I don't think they're scared of them by any means. But you've seen them; they're signing talent right now just to sign talent. It's not like they have any plans to use these guys. They have more talent than they need. There's just not enough spots to go
I'm
around.
sort of, I somewhat agree with that, but to say that they're signing with no idea of how to use some of these people, I think is...
I totally believe they're just like, okay, the newest signing, Matt Riddle. Okay, let's talk about him. He was offered a contract from New Japan Wrestling. And as soon as they got wind that he was going to sign with New Japan, they swooped in, offered him more money because they can, and just signed him just because. He's been around for years as one of the major independent stars. They could have signed him last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. But they never did because he's a proponent of weed. He talks about
Which is, it's a fine in WWE system. It's not...
Right, but I just want to, but they wanted to stay away from that stigma because he doesn't believe in taking pain pills like Vicodin, Oxy. He'd rather, if he's hurting, smoke weed for a painkiller. But they wanted to kind of just stay away from that. Well, we don't want to touch that. That's taboo. Well, all of a sudden, the competition, if you want to call them that, we're going to sign them. And they're like, whoa, we can't let that happen. Here you go. What do you need? Here, we'll just give it to you. And they have them.
Well, let me counter that. Name some big guys that Triple H has brought into NXT that he's done nothing with. Your argument is more so applicable to the main roster. But to say they're not going to use these guys in any capacity. They make money, I think, on NXT, and they're hoping to make money on this UK show.
Right. I think they signed with NXT probably for a decent penny, nothing crazy, but at hope to get called up. I don't think someone like Ricochet, who he's never going to be used on the main. He's going to make it the main roster, I think, someday, but never going to be used well. I mean, and I wonder how many of those guys regret signing. Like, Neville walked out for that reason. This fellow was like Cedric Alexander, who's an awesome wrestler, but he's never going to be anything more than a 205 Live guy that gets featured on the network that you don't even see on Raw anymore, or a pre-show with 1/3 of the arena full. I mean, you wonder if they're totally happy. And now they're seeing that guys like the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes are showing if you're good enough and you're smart enough, you don't need the WWE to make you. You don't anymore.
That's fair.
And that is huge, because if these guys go, you know what, I don't need to resign here. I want to bet on myself and go make it. And maybe you will, maybe you won't, but you're betting on yourself.
But why do guys like Drew McIntyre come back after they blow up? He could have been a superstar anywhere. He decides to come. Well, there's your answer.
And that's why they're always going to get the talent. I've read that the only reason they're NXT UK is and they're signing these guys is to keep certain people away from the UK promotions.
Isn't that good business?
It's great business, but it's horrible if you're a wrestling fan like me or you, because this is what WWE does. If anything gets a little bit of a start going, they're going to throttle it, which is great business by them. Why wouldn't you? You don't want competition. But for the wrestlers and the fans, that's horrible. Because
and they have a working relationship with a few companies as well. Gabe Sapolsky's company, I think it's Evolve, which is what Matt Riddle was in.
they did that with ECW way back when. I mean, he came out later after they closed it. Paul Heyman and were on the payroll. They were helping ECW out because ECW was supplying them with wrestlers. So it's not unheard of for Vince to do that. But I'm ready for a little bit of a change. I would like a secondary option. This is huge. They sold out Madison Square Garden, which as soon as Vince found out they were running that, he put a stop to it. But then when Ring of Honor said they were going to sue, Madison Square Garden backed off of that, allowed them in, and that's now sold out for a Madison Square Garden show between them and New Japan.
So let me kind of circle back to All In here, Justin. What the significance of this is that it's not a single promotion that is really carrying this out. So what happens if it succeeds?
Good question. What does? I would assume
Cody and the Young Bucks make some money off of it, and they maybe can do this on an annual basis. I don't think they want to do it more than once or twice a year. But
I don't think it's.
But let's say they do it once or twice every year for the next handful of years. Does that really affect WWE?
No. But what it could do is the average fan goes, "I'm going to watch this show. Oh, who's that wrestling? I haven't really seen them. Man, that's really good. I need to follow this guy. Where's this guy wrestle at?" And it shows you there's a different style of wrestling out there. This is fun. And I expect maybe a surprise or two. You would think they're going to have a surprise or two, right? I mean, they have to. They just can't not, right? I would assume.
Yeah, I would be shocked if there isn't some sort of surprise. Jay Lethal, and we'll again talk a little bit about the matches. Jay Lethal does not have his opponent determined yet. That would be a good opportunity to get a big name going against him that hasn't been advertised.
His opponent's supposed to be coming from the winner of the Battle Royal.
Which the full list of participants has not been revealed yet. They have a lot of the names, but I think there's some that are still...
So there could be somebody special. Over the last couple of days, I don't know if you saw, they've kind of reported that it's being reported that Neville is no longer under contract to the WWE. And a couple of the Bullet Club members and stuff have tweeted out little things about hinting at Neville. Now, are they just doing that to draw interest? Or do they know something we don't and Neville's going to show up? That would be a get.
Does WWE let him go a week or so before if they thought that he was going to be participating in this, though? And maybe they're doing right by him. Maybe he really said, this is something I want to do. And I'm not saying Vince hates a guy like him. Maybe, he really understood his situation and he's being kind, because they've done stuff like that with Chris Jericho. Now, obviously, Jericho has a much stronger relationship with WWE, but they've sort of let him do his own thing out of respect to him.
Well, they're not letting him do anything because Jericho's not under contract. Vince doesn't have to let him do anything. Jericho's doing what Jericho wants to do. Now, he said that he did call Vince as a professional courtesy, since they've been close all these years, say, "Hey, Vince, before you hear from somebody else, I'm doing some matches with New Japan."
But I bet a guy like Jericho's still making money from WWE through various forms of merchandise, revenue, stuff like that, right?
You have to have a Legends contract to make money off of your stuff. I mean, do they still? I don't think they have any Jericho merch for sale anymore through their store, do they? I mean, I don't know. I don't go on there to look.
It seems like, and he wrestled in Saudi Arabia like 3 months ago.
Yeah, well, he's a guy that he's been around and he gets clout. Like, hey, we won't give you a contract. This is a one-off. Like, we'll pay you this much of money for a one-off appearance. No contract. Okay, I'm there. Just like an independent booking. You pay me so much to come to your show, and then I move on.
Speaking of which, is he a guy? Do you know anything about his status for this show?
I do not. I don't know if
you think it's a little unusual with the fact that he's worked with a lot of these guys that he's not a part of it as of now?
Unless there's a Fozzy obligation. I mean, I don't know what his band touring schedule is, because usually he works around that now.
Because that's a name that legitimately probably brings in as many eyes as anyone else on the card.
I think as a casual U.S. wrestling viewer, yes, because everybody knows who Chris Jericho is. I mean, I don't think Chris Jericho is the Chris Jericho of yesteryears. He can still put on an entertaining match, but he's nowhere near where he was 5, 6, 7, 10 years ago. But he's also, 42, 43? And I know a lot of people are going to say CM Punk because it's in Chicago. He's doing a signing there like the day before. I don't think that's going to happen, nor do I want to see it happen. Honestly, I don't.
I think it's pretty known that he was never really an option to wrestle. I think the speculation was he would appear, cut a promo, something like that.
You would think, I mean, because apparently he's friends with the Young Bucks, and he seems like he's friends with a lot of those
Well,
guys.
supposedly he's friends with Colt Cabana, too, but that might be out the window.
He used to be, which, you're alluding to the lawsuit story there, which if that's true, what a D-bag Punk is. I mean, this sounds like a huge D-bag in real life. So, done with him.
So the interesting thing, Justin, when I looked at the card, and I know we were talking about it, is, again, I watch Ring of Honor. I think it's a pretty good show, but I'm going to be honest, one reason why I watch it is because it is basically, in a sense, developing WWE stars, future WWE stars. I know that that's maybe not the approach, or that's not what they want to be known as, but I think up until a few months ago, they're opening, like, montage of different guys that have come through there. They show CM Punk, they show Daniel Bryan, they show Cesaro. I want to say they maybe showed Kevin Owens. So like probably half of the big names in WWE is at some point competed in Ring of Honor. Seth Rollins being a guy who's done that. AJ Styles, Nakamura briefly came over and wrestled.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, probably half of their big time names wrestled at some point in Ring of Honor. So it's great. Sami Zayn is another one. So you see these guys before they become WWE stars. It's almost like a little bit below what NXT is. That's one reason why I enjoy watching it. That being said, there's about half of the card at All In is Ring of Honor guys. The other half are people who wrestle either in Mexican promotions or over in Japan, over maybe in Europe. So how much do you know about these guys on the card, and does that make it good or maybe a little apprehensive for you as far as what to expect when you're not very familiar with at least a few guys that are going to be in big matches?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with everybody. I try my best to stay up on things through the internet. I don't have Access TV because I do not have DirecTV, so I cannot watch New Japan. I know people with DirecTV has access to the weekly New Japan show. I try to, read up on names that people say are good, go on YouTube, find their matches, and, that's how I hear about them. I try to watch as much New Japan as I can find because I think there's a lot of cool stuff. I like the way they wrestle over there more than I do the WWE style. That's just a preference of mine. I do acknowledge that it's more dangerous. I understand.
See, this is where I'm going to sound like a lifelong WWE fan. I would agree with you. They probably put on more entertaining, classic matches because they get that freedom that honestly a lot of NXT takeover shows have. That being said, I don't think that the talent over there is better. I don't. A lot of the guys that are big over there have failed in WWE, and vice versa. A lot of the guys that come from over there that are stars don't have success when they come over. Like Nakamura was definitely one of the biggest names. I know that we said Kenta, Hideo Itami, while not in New Japan, was a huge star in Japan. Those guys, to me, aren't that great. And yet a guy like, I'm drawing a blank, Juice Robinson. I mean, yeah. He was no one thought he was good in NXT. Now, some guys maybe get better, understandably. But to me, it's not really the great talent over there. It's just they are allowed to do more and have those 30-minute matches more often.
Right. Now, just to, kind of debate you here a little bit, are they not good, or are they just not being showcased well by WWE or their strengths? I mean, you could look at it both ways. Like EC3, for instance, who's doing well in NXT now, was originally there years ago, got released, made himself known in TNA, and now they wanted him back. I mean,
much like McIntyre. It's a very similar...
Right, they're going to miss on some guys, and they're going to go elsewhere, and they're going to be like, oh, man, these guys do have it. We just missed on them. And some, maybe some guys fit that style better. Some guys just don't fit the WWE style. That's okay.
Right.
That's why it's good to have options. And if you're someone like Dolph, wouldn't it have been nice throughout the years when maybe you didn't think you got what was coming to you to not re-sign because it's the only place to re-sign and go off and do well? I mean, think about that. WCW did that to wrestlers. Chris Jericho came over, did big things. Eddie Guerrero came over, did big things. Chris Benoit, not that ended well, came over and did big things. Without having a second promotion to do that, those guys never would have been wrestling stars.
That's fair. That's a good point. That being said, I see guys in WWE barely even used that I think would be near the top of other, like a guy like an Apollo Crews that we talked about, where you only care about his in-ring work. Are you going to tell me that he wouldn't be a big star in another promotion? I mean, based on his wrestling ability, he certainly would be.
Right, and that's why, people say like some of these mid-carders could be main eventers somewhere else. And not that they don't have it in them, it's just they're not able to showcase it. And with all these different shows...
Neville's another great example. I mean, to me, that guy in the ring is just about as good as anyone in the world.
He's basically pulled like a Chris Jericho, cruiserweight, 205 Live cruiserweight. He felt like, okay, that's fine to be the champion, but then you can always jump up. They told him, no, this is what we have you as, and you're not moving any farther up the card. He goes, screw that, I'm better than this, I'm out.
Right, and I get that, but that being said, he was able to have good opportunities to wrestle against talented guys each and every week and show that he's a great wrestler. He probably wasn't getting the money he deserves, and he was probably being worked too hard, but it wasn't like he was in joke matches. He was showing his prowess.
It's a joke that on the WWE, on WrestleMania, he was on a pre-show.
Right.
Well, the DVD came out.
No money from it.
Included, so he got no money for it.
Right, I get that. I get that.
Full of crap.
But it's not like they were putting him in 30-minute or 30-second joke matches with Santino Marella by the same token. That's my point.
In one way, if it was on the main card, he would have got paid. He was probably overperforming and getting underpaid.
Right.
He was putting on these great matches, but not receiving the money that he deserved.
Which sounds like what a lot of independent wrestlers deal with.
Right, and he decided that maybe I can do better on my own and going back to England and maybe, going home.
What most excites you about this card, whether it be a single match, a single performer?
I'm not even going to go out and say performer. Just the experience of the unknown, because there's no setup to this. We can't, we debate about who we going to think is going to win at SummerSlam in this storyline. There are no really storylines. We're just going, and I just want to watch entertaining wrestling. I don't care who wins, who loses. I hope to be entertained. I hope the crowd's jacked up, which I think they are. And I hope it opens eyes and that it shows wrestling fans out there that WWE isn't the end-all be-all. There are other options. It might be harder to find them, but maybe if you do, things can grow a little bit and you have something else to watch. Maybe we get a Thursday night show that Ring of Honor can get on TV with New Japan or something. They don't have to compete with the WWE, but gives me something else to be like, you know what, I want to check this out because for every one good thing that WWE has going for it right now, it sends out 3 crap segments. And that's all. I just want something else to look forward to as a wrestling fan.
Do you think this card is as good as it could be?
Well, that's hard to say.
To me, and again, I'm taking this from the perspective of I only watch Ring of Honor and WWE, so I don't know some of these guys. I don't know the anticipation surrounding their performances, but Cody Rhodes' match, that seems sort of underwhelming to me. Going against Nick Aldis.
Do a lot for me, but that's.
And see, I thought he was great in WWE and was underutilized. I totally get why he would want to go do something like this. Marty Scurll's competing in a big match. He's a pretty decent guy. He's going against Okada, right?
I believe so.
And then Kenny Omega, who probably has more hype than anyone in all of professional wrestling as far as independent guys. He's going against Pentagon Jr. I don't know anything about him. To me, I would rather see Omega against another more established guy, at least for the North American viewer.
Right, but knowing what I know about that guy, which I'm not going to sit here and act like I know all about the Mexican, wrestling, but I expect a hell of a match. It's going to be a great match. And you might, not know much about him going in. You're going to watch that match and go, damn, I need to maybe follow that guy a little bit more. Hell, he could be in NXT within a year without the mask.
Right. Well, see, I feel like they're booking this considering, I think they're assuming the people watching already watch Ring of Honor and New Japan. So to me, I've never seen Omega against Kota Ibushi. But that match would be one I'd really want to see. I know it's happened in New Japan, but they are steering away from that and giving matches that really haven't been seen before.
Dude, and spread the talent that people might know around a little
Right,
bit.
yes.
And
that
might make some sense.
Again, the other thing is I'm not a Young Bucks fan. I know Sean Saputo was very much in their corner, but they're with Coda, and I think that, that's a great trio. But the guys they're going against, to me, there's, Mysterio's a legend. He's probably not great in 2018, but he's good. But I don't know the guys he's with. So to me, you get three of the biggest names all on the same team against a former big name that's now in the twilight of his career, and two guys I know nothing about. Maybe it'll be a great match, but for me, if I'm on the fence, that match isn't going to put me over the top if I don't know the guys wrestling. And that's kind of my perspective from someone who doesn't watch CMML or New Japan or any of the European shows. That's the drawback to trying to appeal to maybe a wider base. Although obviously the numbers are showing there's a lot of people that want to go at least in person to see it.
Well, hey, remember, they sold out the show before there was one match announced for the card. It just
Right.
sold out without having a card.
Right.
So clearly people are going to see this show not based on the card. They're going to see something different, historic, special. We'll find out. I mean, if it's a dud, it's a dud, and that'll be the end of that. I mean, but if anything, Saturday night should be interesting, and it's going to be talked about for the next couple of days after. And everybody is going to be watching. That's for sure.
Real quick before we sign off, what's one thing that you think needs to happen or that they need to avoid happening for this to be a success? And do you anticipate this is the first of many of these style events that are run, again, independently, where they're not necessarily a Ring of Honor or a New Japan show?
I'm going to say it's the first of many, maybe. It's hard to say because you don't know what the numbers are going to be. Maybe I'm way off base and it's going to be a dud. I don't think it's going to be a dud. I do expect these guys to bring it. They're going to lay it out on the line because they know it could be one and done. What they can't do is, if there's a surprise, not some WWE quote-unquote reject. I'm not saying that, but don't do what WCW did or TNA's done and try bringing in WWE names for your show.
So like a Damian Sandow's not going to do it for you.
Don't do that. Just go with the guys that brought you there. Someone like Neville I can live with because he's still young, exciting. Don't bring Christian in to do an interview. Stuff like, none of that. Don't fall into that trap. People there don't want to see that.
Well, they're bringing Virgil in.
Don't bring in the Nasty Boys. Just or the Dudleys, which who knows.
Honestly, Bubba probably, I would think, might be involved in this.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard anything, but he is in Ring of Honor. But I'd stay away from those guys. Let these independent guys, the New Japan guys, the Ring of Honor guys, showcase themselves to a wider audience.
Fair enough. That's going to do it for this edition of Trending Topics. Now, assuming we get on the same page for next week, Justin, I think it would only be right to have our next Trending Topic sort of as a review. Maybe, again, not a match-by-match breakdown, but our thoughts, because the goal, I guess the plan is that we'll both be watching it hopefully live and hopefully without interruption. It's a little concerning that they're, technology-wise, this is also sort of a gamble for them as well. And that's a real concern that, for the streaming services, you said it can't be a dud. Well, if no one can watch it because there's a malfunction with something like that, which WWE knows about when they started the network, that would be disappointing. You hope something like that doesn't happen and sort of ruin it before these guys even get a chance to shine. Right.
Yeah, well, cross your fingers. I mean, we'll see.
We will indeed see. But again, we'll touch base on this next week. We'll also have the Raw recap and SmackDown summary upcoming later this week after those shows conclude. So stick around for that. But again, for my co-host Justin Lowery, Sean Meyers signing off on this special edition of Trending Topics right here on the 5 Star Podcast of Wrestling.